So, hello there, and welcome back to yet another Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing the 3 Wes Anderson shorts that released last week alongside The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, which I've already reviewed on this channel. And the 3 shorts that came out on Netflix just after The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar came out were Poison, The Swan, and The Ratcatcher. But just before I review those 3 shorts, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello to my viewers, but you prefer to listen to your podcasts, well, guess what, you can with this one too, at Night of the Movies on Spotify, and if you are already listening to this podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check this podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and leave me some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on, and feedback is, as ever, much appreciated. So, let's get into it. Poison, The Swan, and The Ratcatcher. So as I've already mentioned, these are 3 Wes Anderson shorts that released last week, literally moments, it felt like moments after I recorded my review of The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Because the funny thing is about that, I remember doing my review of that short film, which is great, by the way, and I definitely recommend it. It's about 40 minutes long. It's on Netflix right now. It's a wondrous Wes Anderson short. The funny thing is about when I was reviewing The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, was I said in that review, I wouldn't be surprised if Wes Anderson has more of these kinds of shorts in the pipeline. I wouldn't be surprised if he already has some ready. And as I mentioned, literally moments after I finished recording that review, I put Netflix on, and there was more shorts. The Swan appeared, The Ratcatcher appeared, and then Poison appeared. And so I said to myself that within the next week, I would sit down and watch these shorts, because I enjoyed The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar so much. And, they are directed by Wes Anderson, and just in case you don't know and you didn't watch my last Wes Anderson review on The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, how many times I'm going to say the name of that film in this podcast today? The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, said again, just said. But yeah, if you didn't watch my review of that, and if you don't know who Wes Anderson is, he's directed such films as The Grand Budapest Hotel, which is wonderful, love that film. Rushmore, which is probably my favourite Wes Anderson film. Bottle Rocket, which is his first film, which I actually think is quite an interesting film. Asteroid City, which was his latest full-length feature film that came out earlier this year. Haven't seen that, so I can't comment on it. The French Dispatch, which came out in 2021, I remember seeing that in the cinema. Wasn't for me, I've got to admit. I didn't mind it, I didn't hate it, but I was also a bit let down. By it, and I've never been drawn to rewatch it, unlike other Wes Anderson films, such as Moonrise Kingdom and The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which are both, they're not Wes Anderson's best films, but they are pretty good. And then you get The Darjeeling Unlimited, which I just love. I'm not even sure why I love that film, I just love it so much. Fantastic Mr. Fox, which was his first animated film, as far as I'm aware, and that was also based on a Roald Dahl story. I think Fantastic Mr. Fox is a Roald Dahl story. Just check that here. Should have checked this when I was doing the planning for this podcast for today. One sec. Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yeah, it's a novel by Roald Dahl. So yeah, much like these shorts, it's also in the same family. Fantastic Mr. Fox is based on a novel by Roald Dahl, and so are these shorts. These shorts are based on source material from Roald Dahl, and he also did another animated feature. Wes Anderson did another animated feature, I want to say in 2019, and that might be in 2017, with Isles of Dogs, which I must admit I haven't seen. And he also directed The Royal Tenenbaums, which I think is such a great film. Heartfelt and very emotional at the same time. Very good film, that. So yeah, I'm a fan of Wes Anderson. I like more of his films than I dislike the films. You know, I'm not sure if I'm making sense. I'm recording this super early in the morning, so I don't know how much of this podcast is going to make sense because I didn't get loads of sleep last night. But yeah, I am a fan of Wes Anderson. I like more of his films than I dislike them. And I'm not the biggest on the French Dispatch, as I already spoke about in my last Wes Anderson, in the last Wes Anderson review I did, and The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I wasn't the biggest fan of that, and I was missing that wonder from his films. Then I watched The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar on Netflix, and I was like, oh, and now I'm reminded as to why I liked Wes Anderson films in the first place. This short has reminded me of the wonder and joy and creativity that Wes Anderson brings to his films. And so I was interested in checking out these shorts. And each one tells a different story, as I already mentioned, based on Roald Dahl's source material, which I must admit, I'm not familiar with the source material, so all this is new to me, what I see in these shorts. And you get Poison, which stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Dev Patel, Sir Ben Kingsley, and Ray Fiennes. You get The Swan, which is mostly Rupert Friend, which many people, by the way, don't know who Rupert Friend is by name. He most recently played the Grand Inquisitor in Obi-Wan. He's been in plenty of other films, but that's how I know him, and if you haven't guessed already, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so, that's how I'm going to see him now. But, back onto what I was saying, The Swan, which is one of these Wes Anderson Roald Dahl shorts, is mostly Rupert Friend and has a short appearance by Ray Fiennes at the end of that short. And The Ratcatcher stars Rupert Friend again, Richard Iwardi, who I will always remember from the IT Crowd, and Ray Fiennes again appears in that third short. And each of these Wes Anderson shorts is about 17 minutes long. They're really not long whatsoever. They're shorter than The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, and they're much more tighter, and they include the same cast, the same people who appeared in The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, with the exception of Rupert Friend, who I don't remember in that film, I don't remember in that short, but with the exception of Rupert Friend, the same cast from Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar appear in these shorts, and these shorts are all really fun to watch. They have this creativity that Wes Anderson brings to his films, not only shorts, but all of his films, all of his feature-length films, all the ones I love so dearly, and they have that Wes Anderson comedy which makes you laugh and you're not even really sure why you're laughing, and you're laughing before you even realise it. It has that meticulous filmmaking which you get from the best Wes Anderson films, and the craftsmanship on screen with these shorts is quite incredible. I don't know how long it took to make these shorts. I don't know how many takes it took to make these shorts. I can never do it. I can never do what Wes Anderson does. I've seen a couple of videos of Wes Anderson behind the scenes of some of these, full-length feature films, and he seems so particular about everything. He seems like a bit of, and I mean this in the best way possible, a bit of a control freak. And I think it pays off, though, because even though these aren't the sort of films which I could make, I don't really make films anyway, so I'm just talking out my ass there, but even though these aren't the sort of films that I could make, I admire them because of the amount of detail he puts into these shots and how he frames everything. I am mesmerised by these shots. I am mesmerised by how he does them and how he gets these actors like Dev Patel and like Rupert Friend and like Richard Iwardi, who are essentially the narrators and who are essentially the storytellers of these three shorts, to say their lines so quickly to the audience. I am mesmerised by it. I don't know how that works. I don't know how they do it without fluffing up their lines, without messing up a word, without pausing to take a breath, because it's constantly moving with the dialogue and the storytelling. It really does feel like the narrators in each one of these shorts are the people reading the story to you, know what I mean? It almost feels like if this story was read to you, this is how Wes Anderson wanted it to be done, if you get what I mean. And the way they're telling the stories as well, they're talking directly to the camera, which means they're talking directly to the viewer, to the audience, to the spectator, and that means that you feeling more engaged in the film and you get more into it, because there is that breaking the fourth wall, which you get in all of these shorts, and it means that these stories quite literally feel like they are being told to you, and also it makes you feel more engaged. At least makes me feel more engaged. However, that's one of the things I liked about it, but also it's a criticism I have of all three of these shorts, not including The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I'm not talking about that short at the moment. No, it's a problem I have with the shorts Poison, The Swan, and The Ratcatcher. There is so much being thrown at you at once in these shorts that it's kind of difficult to really grasp it all. You know, you're sat there and all this information, all this story is being thrown at you through the dialogue and through the narrator and through the story that is being told, and there's so much of it that you're not going to get everything. And it also means that if you disengage for a couple of seconds, that's it. You're going to be lost. And that's what happened with me the first time I watched The Swan. The Swan is probably my least favourite of these three Wes Anderson shorts I'm talking about in this podcast today. You know, The Swan is probably my least favourite because it's only told from one narrator. We only really get one... Well, we get other... That's a bit of a weird one because I'm about to only get one character, but then we see other characters, but they don't speak. So we only really get one character talking to us. And I disengaged for like 10 seconds because I was thinking, I'm not sure this is working as well as the other shorts do because they have multiple characters there. And then, because I disengaged, I tried to get myself back into it, and I was lost because all this dialogue was thrown at me. And, you know, it's a problem I had with The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, where I would just want there to be more breathing space. I almost wish that these shorts were part of a full-length feature film directed by Wes Anderson called The Stories of Roald Dahl in the World of Wes Anderson. Something like that. The Stories of Roald Dahl in the World of Wes Anderson. I just made that up, by the way, off the top of my head. I didn't actually plan that or put that down in my notes. So, I'm actually quite proud of that name. Anyway, I probably shouldn't be, but yeah, you get the point I'm making. I wish they were almost told in this full-length feature film. Although saying that, if they were, I probably would have a problem with that as well. Because that was one of my problems with The French Dispatch. For me, that film felt a bit too episodic. It felt like we were going all these different stories. And I know they had a through line between them, one thing connecting all of them. But I didn't feel that as much. Maybe I need to watch The French Dispatch. Because when I first saw it, I remember liking it. But whenever I think about it, I get this bad taste in my mouth. But you know, you get the point I'm making. It feels there's so much thrown at you that you're just not going to get it all. And, you know, these films are to an acquired taste. I can understand why some people would hate these shorts, would watch them and go, what? I don't understand what's going on. There's too much going on. And, yeah, it's just, these aren't for me. And I will admit, I've seen all of these shorts, including The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, all twice. To understand them to a degree. I still don't fully understand all of them, but I now understand them more after watching it a second time, because on the first time, and this may just be me, but on the first time, I'm struggling a little, because I'm like, whoa, so much is going on in these short amount of times. It's even worse with the, you know, with Poison, The Swan, and The Ratcatcher, where they're in these 17-minute bursts, and you're trying to get your head around it, and I'm not somebody who can quickly do that, and so I'm finding it a tad difficult to watch the first time, and I wish that these shorts had some breathing space and made things a bit more accessible to the viewers, because they do move at such a breakneck pace that if you miss one little detail, if you miss one line of dialogue or one sentence told by the narrator or told by Ray Fiennes, who is basically playing Roald Dahl in these shorts, if you miss one line of detail from any of these characters in the shorts, you might be lost. And that's how I kind of viewed it. Saying all that, though, these are good shorts and they're entertaining. And you know, controversy aside, I've always liked the stories of Roald Dahl. I remember reading them to myself. I remember people reading them to me when I was growing up. And I like the worlds he creates. And I like how Wes Anderson adapts these worlds in these shorts. You know, I don't know the source material, as I've already said. I don't know the source material that these shorts are based on, But these shorts feel like they've been well adapted. It feels like Wes Anderson is a huge admirer of, Roald Dahl, and he feels like he wants to do the best job adapting these stories. Oh, and this is a quick little add-on, by the way. One thing I forgot to mention when I was doing my review of these shorts was I like how at the end of each of these shorts you get some context, some information about how Roald Dahl came up with the story for each one of these shorts. I like how it does that, because even though I don't really care too much, each of the context and the little piece of each context card which you get at the end of each short is interesting, though. I like that, and it's just a little detail, much like many Wes Anderson films, which make me like these shorts more. Wes Anderson does that in all these films, add these little details which make you like his films more, and that's the same thing that happens here. The context cards that show up at the end about how Roald Dahl came with these stories, just a little piece of information which are interesting, and made me admire these shorts just that little more. And I love the creativity in these shorts. I love how Wes Anderson is doing something in a different genre with these shorts, because the Swan, Poison, and the Ratcatcher, the three shorts I'm obviously reviewing this podcast today, they are all doing something in the horror genre. I mean, they're not flat out horror movies like, say, Halloween, The Exorcist, or Friday the 13th, but they are horror films, but Wes Anderson horror films. You know what I mean? The Wes Anderson horror films. They're not straight up horror, but I will say they are horror films that work in making you feel unsettled and make you feel a bit unnerved. I didn't mind this one. It just wasn't. It didn't grab me like the other shorts, the other Wes Anderson shorts did. But the thing is, about the end of this one, I sat there and was like, oh wow. I didn't expect the short to end that way, and I feel similar about the Ratcatcher and Poison, but actually I like those a bit more, because there was this uneasy feel like when I was watching those films that horror does to you, that good horror does to you. And I'm not saying these are great horror shorts or anything, but it's Wes Anderson horror, and I like seeing Wes Anderson do something in a different genre, because usually his films are comedies. Wes Anderson comedies, and they're not flat-out comedies like, say, I don't know, off the top of my head right now, This Is the End, or... I always go back to that one, don't I? Whenever I think of a comedy, I always go back to that one. I don't even think it's that funny, but they're not flat-out comedies, say, like the Anchorman films. You know what I mean? They're not flat-out comedies, but they are Wes Anderson comedies, and I actually really like the way he does comedy. And he does a lot of coming-of-age stories. And these films aren't that, though. These shorts are horrors. When you really think about it, they are horror shorts. And at the same time, they're Wes Anderson horror shorts, which is why I like that. I like the fact that he's doing something in a different genre. I don't think they're particularly scary, yet I do think they make you feel unsettled. And one thing that I mind all of these shorts, and this includes The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, and it's something I didn't mention in my review of that, was how these films evoke the early silent cinema of George Méliès. So I'm going to get proper film geeky here, I'm going to go back to early silent cinema, which probably a lot of people watching this don't really know about. I love how these films evoke that early George Méliès silent cinema, which I learnt about in uni, and I was fascinated by watching some of those early silent cinema films from George Méliès, because I was going, this is similar to Wes Anderson. I was like, oh no wait, Wes Anderson is evoking him in his films. These shorts, you can almost, you could mute these shorts and just watch them with the sound off, and you would have that same feel that I'm sure many people had in the early 1900s, maybe, 1920s. I'm not sure when George Méliès was about, I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but you can almost mute these shorts and imagine what it would have been like for people watching silent films back in the early 1900s, 1910s, 1920s. And that's something I really like about the fact that, particularly in this day and age, we still have a filmmaker like Wes Anderson evoking some of that early silent cinema. And I really love how these films are made. I really love how these shorts are crafted. The amount of work on screen is quite incredible. I could never do it. I can never do it. I like how all these shorts feel like a play too. They feel like a play. When you watch them, you quite literally see actors walk in and off, well, on and off screen. Much like when you watch a play, you see actors walk on and off the stage. And you also see lighting change quite literally in front of you. You see props being brought on, and I just really like that about it. That's something I really liked about the wonderful story of Henry Sugar, and it was continued into these three shorts. These three shorts also have a bit of animation in them. That same style animation which you get in Fantastic Mr. Fox and which you get in Isles of Dogs, Wes Anderson's previous animated full-length feature films, which I always really like. It's a stop-motion animation where they're doing every other shot. From what I've heard, they're, putting it in every other shot, and it's making it work. And yeah, I really liked that whole stop-motion animation. And I really enjoy these films because they remind me of why I like Wes Anderson. Now, I don't think any of these shorts are as good as The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. I still think that is his best short, which is put on Netflix at the moment. But I do like these shorts. I find them entertaining, and they're bursts of Wes Anderson joy and creativity, and they're meticulously made, which is why I admire them. I do find it a little difficult to follow these stories. I'm not going to sit and say I don't, because that'd be a complete lie. I do find it difficult to follow these stories a little bit. But at the same time, though, I'm glad they're there, and I'm glad they're on Netflix, because now I can rewatch them at my own leisure, and I'm sure I will over the next week. And, maybe not even over the next week, maybe even over the next couple of months, or the next year, or the next years, or whatever. You get the point I'm making. They're on Netflix, and I'm glad they are, because, I think they're really good. I think they're really good, and I can understand why they're not going to be for everybody, but maybe just because I'm a Wes Anderson fan, I enjoy these films. But no. I think it's not just because I'm a Wes Anderson fan. I think these shorts are actually really good, because they feel like storybooks come to life. You can almost imagine reading these books, and yet this feels like Wes Anderson reading the book to you. If you get what I mean. I'm not sure if you do. Anyway, you get the point. I like these three shorts. For me, the best of these three shorts, not including The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, the best of these three shorts is Poison. But I also really enjoyed The Ratcatcher. And I did enjoy this one. I didn't like it quite as much. But I think overall, I would give all three of these shorts a 7.5 out of 10. If I was going to give them an overall rating, I'm not going to rate each one of these shorts individually, because that's just not what I'm going to do. I don't see the point in that. And as already mentioned, by the way, each one of these shorts is about 17 minutes long, and if you're in the mood for a burst of Wes Anderson joy, I would recommend them. If you're a fan of Wes Anderson films and you haven't checked them out, I'd recommend them. I do think they're some of his best work, perhaps since the Grand Budapest Hotel, and that's surprising to say. I mean, again, I haven't seen Asteroid City, which came out earlier this year, and I will get around to watching that before the end of this year, and hopefully review it on this channel. But I didn't love French Dispatch, and I haven't seen Isles of Dogs, but the French Dispatch, I spoke about this in my review of Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, put a bad taste in my mouth. And these films put a good taste in my mouth. Even so, I have some small nitpicky problems with them. They put a good taste in my mouth, and they made me look forward to the next full-length feature Wes Anderson coming in the future, which hopefully doesn't include a huge cast. Because when we spoke about this on the channel, I have problems with the cast Wes Anderson has for his films. Man alive, I've just seen how long I've been going on for. I've been going on for 23 minutes. That's longer than one of these shorts that I'm reviewing them today in this podcast. I just have so much to say sometimes. I'm sorry that I ramble on. So, yeah, I'm going to round things off now. You get the point I'm making. And I'm going to say this. These are all good shorts, and I think The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar is the best of all these shorts, and I really enjoy them. And I think The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar is the best of all the shorts, all the Wes Anderson shorts on Netflix right now. But I think Poison, Ratcatcher, and the Swan are all good as well. And yeah, I would definitely recommend them. I really enjoy them. They're meticulously, what have I titled this podcast today? Give me a sec. They are meticulously crafted Wes Anderson shorts, and that is why I like them. And so, all in all, as what he said, I'm going to give all three of these shorts, Poison, the Ratcatcher, and the Swan, I'm going to give them a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for this podcast for today. I just realised that my SD card, which I'm recording this podcast through, only has 4 minutes left in it, so I'm going to round this off really quickly. Thank you, as always, for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you have seen any of these shorts, let me know your thoughts on them in the comment section below. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast, particularly if you're new here. And yeah, as I said, thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast, and look forward to many more podcasts coming very soon on this channel. Thank you as always for watching or listening. I've already said that 3 times now, so yeah, there you go. All over the place right off this podcast today. So yes, that's it for the podcast. Thank you, and I will see you guys again soon. I said thank you 4 times in this outro, and see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.